All right, we are not live. We are pre-recorded, but hello, ladies and gentlemen of the future. Jason and I are joining you tonight because we're doing part 2 of our discussion on politics and shit. Part 1, a little behind the scenes. We had filmed that, or we had recorded that, and then when we released it, that first part 1 was a reaction to the presidential debate. But by the time we released it, the assassination attempt had already occurred.
Yeah.
So it was already a little passé. It was a little like out of its time, I guess. But now we're gonna try to keep it. We're gonna record it. We're gonna try to release it sooner so that nothing too fucked up or crazy happens in between.
Seriously. Like I was literally just thinking about this coming up the stairs to do the recording. Think about how there are so many things that happen in politics, and you're like, oh wow, that felt like it happened just yesterday. And it was like 2 months ago, right? So much has happened that that Donald Trump being grazed in the ear feels like it was forever ago. And it's like a week
Well,
ago
yeah,
now. Maybe
yeah.
2 weeks. No, like a week and a half now. It's been a week and a
So
half.
just
Feels
for
like it was
reference
forever
sake,
ago.
today is Wednesday, the 24th of July.
Mm-hmm.
It
Joe
is.
Biden has just finished his speech.
I did not watch it, but you did.
Oh, I did. Oh, I did.
Okay, it is 9:26 in the PM Eastern time, the only time zone that matters. All other time zones are just whatever burgers. East Coast and West Coast, that's it. All that crap in the middle, who cares? Central? Nah, no one important lives there. Anyway, so
You realize I can still take you out of the show, right?
yeah, I know, but I thought we were past all that, Jason. You
No.
abusing the button. Anyway,
Please.
so fill me in, Jason. You just got done watching Joe Biden tonight. Just, I don't know, when did it end? Just a few minutes ago?
No, he only went for like 10, 11 minutes.
Okay.
Like it started at 7. I just got back. Unfortunately, I was out with my wife. I had to listen to most of it in the car.
So Joe Biden just got done addressing the nation because, as we all know by now, that he has dropped out of the race because he is old as dirt. I don't know how that address went, but I feel like it went something like this. I'm old. I'm old. I
Yeah.
suck. I'm gonna leave. I'm too old. Was it something like that?
Basically, with a little bit more, way more lying, but yes. Like
Was he just like, I'm just so old? Like that?
I loved how he basically said it's time for another generation to step in. And it's like, and I'm over here thinking the only reason you're leaving is because you're being forced out because you're about to die. Like that's it. He isn't even stepping out of power. He's just not running anymore for a second term. He's not ending his first term. He's not ending it early so Kamala can step in and take over. And he's just stopping his campaign. That's all he's doing.
He's
It's
just old as dirt. Did he
yeah,
mention anything about being old as dirt?
not in those terms, but yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, it was basically I've been in this a long time and age. It was more poetic than the way you put it, but essentially that was the point.
He's old as
I'm
dirt.
old. Yeah, I'm old. It's time for me
Okay.
to leave. I want to unify the party, and it's like
He didn't say anything like, I make Methuselah look like a newborn puppy. Nothing like that.
no, nothing like
Okay.
that. He did start by referencing the founding fathers, and it's like, well, it's apropos considering you were there and you were fighting for
Yeah.
the British, but whatever. He's again just everything he was talking about the accomplishments that never occurred.
I was surprised he even made it through the speech. I was part of me was like, I don't even know if he's going to make it through the speech.
Oh, dude, I had a running bet with a friend of mine on whether or not he'd go full Max Headroom and just got because it started buffering.
Hmm.
Here's the thing. This whole okay. I'm going to start with this, and then we can go back to all the other things that happened over the last week and a half. Jeez, kind of a lot. So I'm trying to think about where to start on this one because there's so much with this. There is no evidence this was filmed live. Now,
Okay. No.
I'm not saying it
Yeah.
wasn't, right? I'm not saying it wasn't live, but here's what I'm saying. It was done in the Oval Office, supposedly. which means there's just the film crew there. We have no idea if this was live or not. We have no
Mm.
idea what it is. This is how crazy the last week has been. Not even last week, since Sunday. This is how crazy it's been since Sunday. A document is put online through Twitter, now X. I will never call it X. It's stupid. Anyway, it's put out online on unofficial letterhead with a signature that doesn't look like the other, the last 5 executive orders he signed. The junior's missing. It's underlined, and which he never does. And there's a B, and the B looks wonky. There's no video of him signing that letter. He doesn't come out and say anything until now. Literally, there was no proof that Biden was still alive until Tuesday. There was no, please understand what I'm about to say. The man who is president of the United States just disappeared for a week after, by the way, there's a ton of evidence now. The preponderance of evidence is that there was a medical event while he was in Las Vegas. We don't know that it was necessarily him. True.
But I thought it was because of the unicorn.
That was the official statement later, was that it was because of the unicorn he had to be isolated. But there's no video of him signing this document. There is no evidence Joe Biden had anything to do with that, with his dropping out of the race. Please understand what I'm about to say. There is no evidence in the public domain that he knew anything about him dropping out. He may have literally just woken up one day or on Monday and they're like, by the way, Joe, you're not in the race anymore. You're going to throw your support to Kamala. It's over. He may have had, there is no evidence he had anything to do with this conversation. I'm not saying he didn't. What I'm saying is there's no evidence that he signed the document, that he even knew what was going on. This is, in any other nation, this would have been called a coup. This was a political coup. End of conversation. In like a 2-week span after a debate, Biden's regime has been locking up political dissenters and going after his political opponents, using the justice system, creating new laws, creating new novel theories, sending people from the Justice Department to prosecute them in New York and other states. And then when an assassination attempt on his political rival fails, he is unceremoniously, while no one can see him, while he is completely gone, incommunicado from all humans, a document that is remarkably dubious appears on the internet, and now his vice president is made the de facto nominee for his party. This is a political coup, period.
So you think he was muscled out? You think he was brought into a room with like the heads of the Democratic Party and been like, or the heads of the deep state, and they're like, Joe, your time's up, dude.
I don't think he was even the one in the room. I think it was Jill. Again, that's what I'm saying. There is no evidence he even knew that document, that he signed the document, or that he knew the document was being put out. There's zero evidence of it. I don't think he was even in the room. Now, was he muscled out? This is where, again, I've never claimed prescience on any of this. There's a couple things that happened since the last recording that look pretty good on my resume. Again, as I mentioned, the entire reason they did the debate was to push him out, right? That was my main claim, was that as soon as I heard, hey, Joe Biden challenges Trump to a debate before either of them are the nominees, I was like, okay, they're getting him. They got to kick him out now. That's what that is. There's no reason to do that except to get him out of the race. That's what it was. Now, here's the thing. Kamala is the heir apparent. Yes. However, I would like to point out, and I'm going to stay on this horse. I don't think they go with Kamala, because while everyone seems to be going along with her, it was Barack Obama himself who called for an open primary for the convention.
Yeah, I recall that.
That's a big deal. So again, will it be her? I can't say yes or no. All I'm thinking is it may be unlikely, because here's the thing. She is remarkably unpopular. People don't like her. No one likes this woman. She is people don't hate her the way they hate Hillary Clinton. That's only because they haven't really gotten a chance to know her and really, really despise her for how big a piece of trash that woman is. But again, I'm not saying it can't be her. I can see them just kind of saying, you know what, we're going to have to call this a rebuilding year and just let the chips fall where they may. I can see that being the case. But again, they did the debate to get him out of the race. That's what that was about. Because they have been carrying his water the entire time. The news media, the intelligence agency, and finally, either things had gotten bad enough on his end that they couldn't, or whatever they felt he would do. Because, like I said, I always thought he'd be out midway through, right, to try and give Kamala 2 years to build her up. I never thought he'd finish. I knew he wasn't going to run again. I knew he would not make it to the ballot, but I never thought that he'd last this long. It was just too obvious that they just needed him to try and, get into the presidency, and then they would get rid of him. I never thought he'd last this long. So that one's on me. But yeah, so he's gone. Now he's not gone. He hasn't resigned, which I'm still surprised about, to be honest. But at this point, it's like, look, we kind of got bigger fish to fry.
November's just around the corner, baby.
It is. No, it absolutely is. But I think your observation you made a couple of years ago, and I think it was brilliant at this point, is that we imagine that the people who are really in charge have this control, in that everyone in the deep state follows orders, right? I think I used this last time. It's not Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back walking up, kneeling to this giant hologram, like, what is thy bidding, my master? That's not what this is, right?
Yeah.
These are people who have interests, and there are evil people. There are people who just they're non-political, they're non-ideological, they just want power and money. And then there's people who just want to get by and have the moral flexibility to do what they're told, right? But of those first two groups, like, there are people who genuinely believe, like, they are legitimate communists, and they believe what they're doing. And there are people who are globalists, they believe what they're doing. But a lot of these people are just wanting power. And the thing is, when you have that many egomaniacs, right, they're all vying for power, they all want money, and a lot of them, they're non-ideological. They're just, they'll do whatever they need to do for money and cash. That's all, and power.
They're self-serving. Yeah.
Correct. And so these people are all infighting, and it isn't the organized thing we imagine it to be, because in a way, this is the thing. We can come back to this, but I think the one conspiracy theory, and it comes in several parts, that I really believe, and I call it a conspiracy theory because there's no way to prove it, right? Is that a lot of conspiracy theories were created, obviously, by the government. That's true. But I think the reason we cling to so many and let's call them true conspiracy, not actual just observations, of things that are going on, but the ones where it's like, you just can't prove it at all. A lot of where everything's highly organized, right? It's the sort of the Michael Bay universe, I call it, where everyone's hyper competent and everyone knows what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
We cling to those conspiracies because, in a way, it absolves us of our responsibility in the world that we live. I can't do anything. My vote doesn't matter. So you don't go. and vote for your mayor. You don't find out who's doing what in your own hometown, right? You don't know who your state senator is. You don't know who your state congressman is, or state representative is. You don't know who your national, you don't know these people. You don't go to the meetings. You don't participate in this system that we have because we just say, and we don't speak out because we say, well, I don't have any power. Here's the thing. What you're seeing right now with Joe Biden is evidence that we do. And even Donald Trump. This is all evidence that we actually have more power than we realize. Because Donald Trump shouldn't be there. He should not have been president the first time if they had power. He should not have had the nomination if they had power. He was president. Now, again, first one to say, they did cheat. Time magazine confessed to it. And there's other things that did happen. But the fact is, in doing so, the entire machine had to move. Donald Trump, just being there, forced the entire machine to move. And now what's happening? You've got Russell freaking Brand. I keep pointing him out. I think I've brought him up a couple times in our conversations off air because it's shocking to me that Russell Brand is now considered a right-wing extremist, which is patently insane. But my point is, he is, he's, I mean, he's just out there and he's like, hey, hold on. All this has changed. And now he's speaking out against it. People who were non-political are becoming political and things are changing. All we had to do was say no. That's all we had to do. We only had to actually start voting. Just a few people, by the way. Say what you will about the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Lauren Boeberts, and the others. They actually forced things to happen. They made changes, and it disrupted things. Right now, this is the period of disruptors. We do need people who can really deliver who can really deliver real substantive change. And we can come to JD Vance here in a second. I want to focus on Biden. But the simple fact of the matter is, the chaos that we're seeing with Biden is due to the fact that these people are corrupt. His party's corrupt. All the parties are corrupt, but particularly his side. He is the deep state. Again, why is Hunter Biden protected? It's not because everyone loves Biden, and it's not even because of Obama. It's because of the CIA. Do you think the CIA didn't know what was going on? There was a guy who was on Burisma's board who was CIA. This is how it works. The politicians that are part of they don't have to necessarily be even assets per se, but they work within the system. They support the intelligence network and the deep state. That's right. It's the deep state that's being protected. It's the deep state that kicked him out because he was becoming a liability. The thing is, these people only have power if we, the people, allow them to have power. All we have to say is no. That's the thing. We actually have way more power. Now, the problem is, everyone's like, well, I'm not leading a battle with a broadsword on an open field. Guess what? That's not even how those battles were fought. But you don't have to. You're right. You're not going to be William Wallace. But you can stand up and you can make your voice count. And guess what? I don't care if if it's like, well, he's not exactly everything I want him to be. Name any politician. Great. Does he get you further down the line? Is he opposed to the deep state? If he gets you at 70 or 80% of what you want, then make that happen. Because if we can get enough people in Congress, both the House and the Senate, who are 70 or 80% of what we want, then the world's going to be a better place. This is a multi-generational fix that we're working on here. And again, you're talking to a guy who thinks, we may not have multiple generations, but we have to fight until that last second. Because, things are going to get, my view, Revelation's coming a lot sooner than we'd like it to be. We still have some time. But I look back and I would look back throughout scripture, and the simple fact of the matter is, whenever there are these massive changes, like I do think Jesus is coming back and he will rule, but we still have to set up a world for him to rule. People who are unsaved will go through those events but they will have our teachings. They will have what we've left behind for them to go, oh, okay, we can see the arguments. We understand the problems. Let's fix these things and move on. Right. Because this is not the end of the world. It's the end of the world system. That's all. That's the only thing that's coming. Now, do I think it's coming sooner rather than later? Yeah. However, do I freely admit it could be a century from now? Absolutely. I don't know when it's coming. I've never been a date setter. Don't want to.
Or it could be a long, drawn out thing that kind of like with the Roman Empire. Like there wasn't one day that it fell. It was just kind of piece by piece over
correct
a number of centuries. It could wind up like something like that.
Yeah. Correct. We don't know exactly how it's played out. In fact, one of the things I pointed out to someone over the weekend is like, guys, we're trying to understand things that were designed to be mysterious to begin with, because they're seven thunders. In Revelation, he says, hey, by the way, don't write those down. There are prophecies we're not told about. Straight up, we know that John saw these things, or he heard the voices of the seven thunders, but he doesn't write them down. We don't. All we know is that we don't know them. So my point is, I'm not date setting. That's my point. Maybe it is 100 years from now. Maybe it is in the 2030s. I don't know. What I do know is I'm responsible now. You are responsible now. Should we at least be fighting until the last possible second? Is politics the end all be all of everything? No. Politics is a tool. That's it. However, it is an arena we should be fighting in. That's the problem. We have a responsibility to the world to make the world we live in as good as we can make it for whatever time we have. That's why politics are important. And what we are seeing right now is you, me, we all have way more power than we realize. That's it. That's the number one takeaway we should have from everything that's going on right now. And there's a lot going on right now.
So all right, let's try to keep a chronological order here. Tell us your thoughts on the assassination attempt, about the assassin, the response. What are your thoughts on it overall?
I'm not going to pretend that I'm a ballistics expert. I'm not going to pretend I have any secret knowledge, because I don't have any of those things. What I will say is this. I don't know if this kid was MK Ultra. I don't know any of that, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do. What we know with ontological certitude right now is there's two options. Either the United States Secret Service is so blitheringly incompetent that this was allowed to happen, or it was an inside job. Those are the only two options we have. There is no third option. Either this was everyone in charge, and by the way, Cheadle is gone, and now, or whatever her name is, and now there's another guy who came in. He's arguably worse because he had more operational control over this than she did. So it's like you got rid of her to get the guy who actually was probably more responsible. It's like, yeah, congratulations on that. But so either these people are so fundamentally incompetent that this was allowed to happen. By the way, no matter what, this is at best the best possible option here. It's criminal negligence, and everyone needs to go to jail because a man was murdered and two others were injured. Well, technically three, because of when you count Donald Trump, but I'm not counting him in this particular math equation. A good man was murdered. Two other good people were injured. This was at best criminal negligence. People need to do hard time for this. The worst case scenario is that it was a setup. They knew what they were doing. It was planned. And there's enough oddities around this event that makes that possibility all the more a reality. I don't know which one it is. I'm not going to say I know which one it is. I will say I will never, and the amount of evidence they would need to put forward to prove this wasn't a deliberate action on their part, I don't think that exists. There were too many oddities. Now, what does for me to think that this was anything other than a deliberate act. Now, by deliberate act, does that mean they knew he was going to be there and someone within the Secret Service orchestrated, meaning real high up that they orchestrated it? I don't think it needs to be quite that deliberate, in so much as could have been something as simple as, hey, we're going to deliberately hinder and screw up his protection. We're going to give him substandard protection. We're going to make certain that there are events, communications are screwed up enough that, because the more people that are involved in a conspiracy, the more likely it is to be acknowledged, right? It could be something as low as a lot of his rallies may have been this vulnerable. This was the first time a guy got through, and they were hoping for a happy accident. That is a real possibility here, and I think we should do well to think that was a real. Not everything needs to be some Mission Impossible level plan. It can be just, hey, let's just make it look like they're incompetent and that these were mistakes and errors that were made when they are planned errors, and just this guy happened to be in the right place at the right time to make this shot. That's a real possibility, because it allows you to be malicious while claiming ignorance or incompetence. That's a real possibility. I don't know if it's just they are legitimately incompetent or if it's malicious. I don't know. I don't have any insight on that. I don't have any proofs. I'm not going to get out, I'm not going to go out and say, I know what happened. I don't. Do I think it's probably it's probably definitely on, yeah, I think probably this was an inside job. And your dog agrees with me, as he should.
Oh, a bunch of people just came home. Like my cousins and stuff just came by. So,
well, tell your cousins I say hi.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, like I said, I can't say which one it is, but I think it's probably an inside job? Oh, absolutely. Can I say that's what happened? No. And again, does inside job maybe have a lot more flexibility than we would like? If I had to put gun to my head, where do I put my money? I think my money is they created a situation, and that his rallies have been far more vulnerable than we've been led to believe, because they wanted something like this to happen because they knew how high his threat matrix was. And so they thought they could engineer a situation where someone would eventually make it through and this would happen. This is what they were hoping for. Not that they necessarily had it all planned out. And we should probably assume that the people involved were just the people at the very top, not necessarily the people on the bottom. Because again, if all of these people are involved, any of them can crack. For conspiracies to work, you need the fewest number of people. So again, I can't say that it was. I think it probably was. I can't say that it was. But those are the only two options we have. Either it's incompetence or it was malicious. End of conversation. There is no third possibility here. Either of them are terrifying, which means they all need to go. The FBI.
Well, it was either incompetence or malicious or intentionally incompetent.
Well, which is still
sort of malicious. Yeah, which is
still malicious. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's still malicious. So everyone needs to go. In the same way the FBI needs to be reformed, that means the Secret Service needs to be reformed. Essentially, what the last 4 years have proven is that at no point is there anything within the federal government that should be trusted ever at all under any circumstances. That's what they've proven. Nothing. None of these people are telling you the truth. None of these people are competent. None of these people have our best interests at heart. They are all clearly politically motivated, and they are controlled. That's what we know. That's not even an assumption. That's not an opinion.
Hold on. I'll be right back.
Do 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 do. Thank you for holding. Your podcast is very important to us. Do 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 do. do 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 do. Thank you for holding. Your podcast is very important to us. Donnie Cho appreciates your patronage. Please select one if you would like more Donnie Cho.
All right, I'm back, baby.
Are you? Are you
Yep.
really?
I'm back.
Okay, so that's the assassination attempt.
So wait, I remember when that occurred, my first thought was like, oh man, Trump's about to get way more popular. Like, that iconic photo of him with his fist up in the air.
Oh yeah, it's like, well,
And I'm like,
that's where
yo,
he wins.
these Trump
Yeah.
supporters are gonna get all crazy for him. Do you think had the result of that attempt not turned out the way it did, do you think okay, no. How about this? I mean, if it had succeeded, that would have been a completely different scenario. But what if it had never occurred? The attempt itself. Do you think Biden would have stayed?
That is a really, really great question. I don't think he would have stayed.
You still think he would have dropped out?
Well, yeah. And again, my reasoning for that is he was set up to fail at that debate.
Okay.
He was going to they were kicking him out no matter what. That was the deep state saying, you got to go, Joe, and we have to make you go. That's what that was. I think they were trying. Now, again, I think the deep state tried to take out Trump. Again, how? I'm not going to get into the details of how that happened because I don't know. What I do know is I do believe that that's what that was. However, I think they are this afraid of Donald Trump. And again, the problem is this is how his whole thing his entire political career has gone. And I do think it's because God has intervened in his life and has intervened in this whole state. Again, everyone's like, oh, how can you say God has anything to do with it? Because I believe God superintends all things. Suck it up. I believe in a sovereign God, and whatever happens, he's moving in this, and it's clear that he has. In the same way that he moved with Nebuchadnezzar, the same way he moved with guy who rebuilt the temple, Cyrus the Great. In the same way that he moves throughout history, he's moving here. And that's one of the reasons they hate him, is because he's not part of that system. He's not a part of the system that goes back to Nimrod. I don't literally think there are 13 Illuminati families who run the universe, right? I think that's preposterous. I do think, however, there are spirits over the nations and have been since day one. The spirit of Nimrod is alive and well. That's why they use the same symbologies. That's why they use the same tactics. They do the same things. That spirit of Nimrod that rules over the earth, that all of the spirits over the nations have, he's not a part of that system. That's why they hate him. That's why everything's come against him. But it's also why God has superintended things so that he will do God's will in this. Doesn't mean that he's a great person, that he's a savior. He's not any of these things. He's a vessel that God is using in the same way he used Nebuchadnezzar to both punish and then help save Israel. In the same way that he used Cyrus the Great, clearly not a Jewish believer, to restore Israel, right back in the Old Testament. God uses people that you don't like in ways you can't imagine, because that's what he does to show himself to be God. Everyone who's seen the video of that assassination attempt saw a miracle. If it hadn't happened, I think he probably would still win. But the reason this assassination, a lot of people who said, look, I was going to be neutral. Maybe I didn't like him, but I wasn't going to vote for him either. They've all decided. A lot of people come out of the woodwork and said, nope, that's it. I got to do this. I got to vote for the guy. I'm changing my mind because, again, as I said, the number one thing in the first administration, again, when he was first elected, someone asked me, what do you think about him? I said he would go down in history as one of the greatest presidents of all time if he did one thing, and that was expose how corrupt the entire system is. And that's what he did. That's what he's still doing. He is the literal living embodiment of the middle finger to this broader system that we are all enslaved to.
Hmm.
That's the and the thing is he says this thing, and the problem is a lot of people don't understand it, and this is why JD Vance is about to become important. He says they're not coming after me, they're coming after you. I'm just in the way. That is the truest statement any politician has ever made in human history. Because that's exactly what's happening. Everything that's going the lawfare where they've engineered new laws, they've created novel theories of how to prosecute law. All of these things, by the way, are falling apart in the judicial system, but they're doing it to go after him because it's what they want to do to all of us. Because he's showing how powerless they really are, but also that they exist. An ambush predator only succeeds so long as you don't know that they're there. As soon as an ambush predator is seen, they've lost their advantage, and usually they don't have the ability to really put up a fight.
Yeah.
That's what he's done. He's exposed the ambush predators. He's exposed the system, and that's why they hate him. That's why they need him to go away. If he was not a threat to this, they only kill or at least try to kill the people that are legitimate threats to their system. JFK, RFK, MLK. They try to go after Reagan, and I think he probably played a little extra ball. But they don't go after people who are their friends. That's just the long and short of it. That's it. They don't go after their friends. He's not their friend. But that's also why he's important. That's why he's here. That's why God is using him. He was in a situation to know what the truth is on a lot of this stuff, on how the system works, and to expose it to everyone and say, hey, Dave Chappelle said in that famous Saturday Night Live monologue, he said, he's an honest liar because he came from outside the house and said, yes, everything you think that is going on in that house is absolutely going on. And then he went right back in. Well, that's what he did. He's called out the system. He was saying the things you're not supposed to say if you're in power. And he's the only president to not in modern American history to not start another war. Literally, in our lifetimes, he's the first and only president to not start a war. In fact, he ended the Korean War. And as soon as he got out, what happened to Kim Jong-il? He said, oh, good. The guy who would actually put me in check, the guy who would have done, oh, okay, he's gone groovy. I'll just go back to doing what I'm doing. Right? Putin didn't want to move on Trump because he's like, this guy isn't playing ball. Let's be honest. We know Putin and the deep state are connected. We know that he bribed Joe Biden, just like China did. This is not a question. We know that he did. The question is, because again, you have to remember, Ukraine was a money laundering business. That's what it was. But beyond that, Trump is the only person since the fall of the Berlin Wall to kill Russian soldiers, as far as presidents go. Everyone forgets he did this in Syria, right? He said he'd go after ISIS, and he won because they were ours, because the Obama administration created ISIS. That's a whole other conversation. But he bombed. He was at dinner with the Chinese ambassador in the Chinese delegates. He said, please excuse me, I'll be right back. He gets up. He orders the strike on the Syrian base that was occupied by Russian mercenaries, and then comes back and tells them, "Oh yeah, I just ordered a strike on this Russian airbase in Syria," and then went back to eating. That entire conversation was for the Chinese benefit, to understand that he was not to be screwed with. He was changing the system. He was a threat to this globalist idea of, oh, we're going to have these never-ending wars all over the place that take 20, 30, 40 years so that we can just keep perpetually putting money into the military-industrial complex. And by the way, also keeping all these other little nations from getting into a position where they could pose an economic or military threat to any of the big boys. He's a threat to that system because he doesn't hate humanity. That's why they try to get him out with lawfare. That's why they've tried to kill him. That's why they hate him. He is ultimately in their way from what they want to do to us. Those 80,000 IRS agents, do you think it's because they really want to go after the 1% or the 2%? No. They're coming after businesses, small businesses, because their economic this Keynesian economic view of that's a whole other conversation. The economic system that we're using using a debt-based system is so screwed up that we have to become wage slaves to support it. The number one line item above military expenditures in the federal government's ledger is servicing the debt, not even paying principal in the debt, servicing the debt. Because we are in so much stupid debt that it's really incalculable. Unfunded mandates alone really should be terrifying because that's in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. We are almost $40 trillion in debt. And the reason I'm not saying like, oh, well, we're about 34 or 35 is because by the time this probably comes out, we will be 30 plus, we'll be almost $40 trillion in debt. This is bad. This is really, really bad. We're going to, like I said, I know in the future, we're going to do another conversation about China and their economy and how bad that is. The problem is that China's hemorrhaging their economy, which makes them dangerous. The problem is we're not necessarily in a better state. We are better, yes, but we are in a very precarious state right now. And it's about to collapse. Changes need to happen or we're done for, and we will look like China. That's where we are. And the thing is, he is actually fighting. Again, you don't have to like him. You don't have to think he's a good guy, but you do need to recognize his enemies are your enemies. And that means something. Now, again, this goes back to why J.D. Vance is so interesting. I can't say that his assassination attempt led him to choose J.D. Vance because J.D. Vance was on everyone's ticket, right? And they had already announced that Don Jr. was going to be speaking that night where the vice president nominee comes up and accepts the nomination, all that. So a lot of people already figure that J.D. Vance was the guy who was going to get the nod because of that, because him and Don Jr. and J.D. Vance are friends. Like, they're good friends. I can't say that the assassination attempt pushed J.D. Vance, pushed him to choose J.D. Vance. I can't say that. What I will say is either way, whether it was that sealed the deal or it was chosen in advance, that is a no pun intended on that. Choosing J.D. Vance is a declaration of war on the deep state.
All right, and how so?
So remember when we were talking again last time, I mentioned that if he chose Marco Rubio, and this is not my idea, other people had pointed out, that meant that because Marco Rubio is clearly more establishment than what a lot of people want him to think, than what he wants people to think that he is.
Yeah.
That if he chose Marco Rubio, it meant that he had made a deal with the deep state. J.D. Vance grew up poor in Appalachia. Again, service does not necessarily make you conservative or anything like that, but he did serve in the Marines. He went to Yale. His entire story of the Hillbilly Elegy is predicated on what he saw as someone who came from, there's the scene in the movie. A lot of people complained about it, and it's like, hold on. Every movie has every life story has some scene that is completely overplayed, right? And no one cares about it because it's not saying that it's literally true. It's just saying, hey, this is sort of they're trying to convey a thought to you, right?
Hmm.
In this scene, I think this is the scene that if you want to understand JD Vance's view of us, like the average folk versus the elite, it's this one scene where he's at dinner with all these people from Yale, right? All of these people who've come from wealth. And they ask where he comes from. He tells them there's this audible gasp because essentially what they're saying is, you're a hillbilly. Like they don't say it, they're more polite, but there's this audible gasp of, what is this man who's not one of us doing here? Right?
Hmm.
That's what that is. That is JD Vance's experience. That's his life. He knows his mother. One of the saddest points of that film, it actually comes at the end of it.
And what was the name of the film again for the people listening at home?
Hillbilly Elegy.
Okay.
Is that, where they're saying, where did so and so end up, right? It talks about his mom and said his mom has been clean at the time of that movie for 5 years.
Hmm.
And you're like, well, hold on. And you start doing the math on that. You're like, she was on drugs his entire life. That means after he had gone to fight in Iraq, that means after he had gone to Yale, like all of these things had happened, she was still a drug addict. He comes from a world where he saw how poor people are because he was poor. He saw how the deindustrialization of the West and really of America has crushed these small communities because he grew up in a community that was deindustrialized. He saw how the elites on either shore don't give a damn about those of us living in the middle.
Hmm.
He saw that. He's also a man of great faith. He didn't vote in fact, he was very public about his dislike of Trump back in 2016. He changed because and he's admitted, he's like, yeah, no, Trump changed my mind because I saw what he did. I saw who he stood for. I saw who he fought for, and it was the little guy. He fought to bring jobs back to this country. He fought to end illegal immigration, which is terrible for the illegal immigrants and it's terrible for American citizens. Because this is the only thing ever that I will say that, oh, I just got his name. The admitted socialist, Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing Bernie Sanders has ever gotten right is when he said that an open border was designed to help people like the Koch brothers and to keep wages down. That is literally the only thing he's ever said that was correct. And he was correct with that. Open borders hurt American citizens. They hurt kids. And just from an economic perspective alone, let's not talk about all the other things that come with legal immigration, right? The child sex, slavery, all of that. Let's put that to the side for a moment. Just from a purely economic perspective, it hurts lower skilled labor. When people say, oh, well, they're taking the jobs Americans don't want to do, that's bullcrap because they are taking a lot of really well-paying jobs. Every time there's a big clean out at meatpacking factories or whatever, there's a line of Americans, native-born Americans, who are lining up to take their places because those are good paying jobs. They're not taking $5 jobs. They're taking $15 and $20 and $30 an hour jobs. The thing is, they can get away with not paying them quite as much. You don't have to worry about, benefits. You don't have to worry about any, FICA, any of this. So it's still cheaper labor. All of you go, why we shouldn't have people over 30, unless there's something, legitimately, like, again, there's some people, they can't really move that far. I get that. There's a friend of mine, he is mentally disabled. He worked at Albertsons as a cart pusher for 20 plus years before that particular store closed down, and they transferred him to another store. I am proud of that man. He is a good guy, and he's achieved what he can achieve. He's doing his best to live his life, and I respect the ever-loving hell out of that. I get that not everyone can do, highly skilled labor, right? There is a need for low skilled labor. But when you go to a Chipotle, the vast majority of people working there should not be over 30. The only people over 30 should be managers. If you're working the line at a Subway, you should be in high school or early college, maybe fresh out of college, because that's what that job is for. The low skilled labor is designed for people to get, that's supposed to be your first job. But now the problem is our economy's been destroyed. So now that's what you have to get. In a fully functional economy, it should be teenagers working at Chipotle and McDonald's and all of that, getting their first job, having to go and learn skills, learn how to work with people. McDonald's is a great first job for a lot of people. My first job was working for my father. That
was my first job.
So and again, so my first job was when I was 8.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah. I figured you had the same story. Yeah. So JD Vance comes from that world, right? He comes from a world where he's like, I have seen how screwed up this system is. And it's because the people in charge have taken power and they're selling America off piece by piece. He's seen it. He's lived it. That's why he's a threat. That's why him being chosen as vice president is a shot across the bow. That's a declaration of war. Because this was the other question I had, right? Whoever he picks obviously becomes the next person in line. Like that's potentially your next president. That's why that's one of the reasons you have that. So him being chosen, it's not just, and particularly because he's got one term left, Trump, right? He's got the one term. So
Jason, chill with them pronouns, man. I'm starting to get confused. Are you talking about Trump or JD Vance or God or Elvis or who are you talking about now?
Well, we can never talk about Elvis. Okay. Trump only has one term left, right? So everyone's like, okay, because if you do both terms, your vice president's not necessarily, historically speaking, they don't always get promoted because they've historically been seen as just that guy hanging around just in case. However, obviously there have been cases where they've popped up and they do go on to become president in their own right. If you've got one shot left, like Trump does, then him picking JD Vance, he's saying, this is the guy. I don't just want to be my vice president to work with me. He's setting him up to be president in 28.
Now, okay, give me a quick breakdown of the difference between JD Vance and Mike Pence.
Well, okay, Mike, this is the simplest and easiest thing to explain it with. Mike Pence was the swamp.
He was the swamp.
He was a member of the swamp. That's why he was picked. A lot of what held Trump
back, thought he was picked because he was meant to appeal to the more Christian aspect of the right. Yeah.
No, he was. So again, what we have to remember is and I'm not even going to say he wasn't a Christian, but he was the right kind of Christian. He's the Christian who does what he's told.
Yeah.
JD Vance is not that person. Again, the swamp is very broad. There's some very deep, dark areas to it. Like every swamp, there's areas on the outside where it's actually kind of pretty, right? It's not so bad. It doesn't smell all that terrible. That's where Pence comes from, but he's still a part of the swamp. He was the guy who looked the right way, who said the right things, and he was there to make a lot of other people feel better about Trump. That's why he was there.
Okay.
He was a Christian. Like I said, I'm not going to say he's not a Christian. I just think he was definitely a Christian that's of the swamp. He was willing to play ball with the establishment parties in a way that JD Vance will not. JD Vance is Generation X.
Mm-hmm.
He is, some have tried to call him an older millennial. I hate that. If you were born between, I think they said 1979 and 1985, it's like you've been Gen X, the Oregon Trail generation, elder millennial. It's like we've been labeled all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's basically Gen X like us, right? He's kind of he's in that age group, and he's a Christian that isn't about being told what to do by the deep state. He legitimately looks at the world and says, no, this is a spiritual war. He's saying he has long been seen as someone who is outside of the system, who does look at the system as an outsider and says, yeah, no, I grew up poor. I know what I'm looking at. And he's a Christian who's not like he's a Christian who says you being offended is not my problem. Right. So that would be the difference between Pence was there to put Trump in check. Vance is Trump saying, I am not going to be in check. I'm bringing this next group that Trump is coming in with. He's coming in with people who are going to dismantle this thing. This is going to be a war. Again, it's a generational war, but this is the people.
Things are going to get ugly. Come November, things are going to get ugly.
Again, they just tried to kill him. Yeah, it's going to get uglier.
So what do you think? Do you think it does wind up being Kamala on the ticket?
At this point, man, I don't know. I will this is where I'm going to say I can't even make a prediction here, because here's where I would land on that. I still don't think they want Kamala. I think as much as they want Biden out, they want her out more. She's not likable. No one's ever voted for this.
I think she definitely appeals to the woke crowd. And there are a lot of
only if you don't dig into her background at all.
Right.
Like remember BLM, like just the other day, I think it may have even been this morning. I think it was yesterday though, came out and said, this is bull crap. No one voted for her. You are disenfranchising all of us.
Mm-hmm.
She's not well liked, dude. And it wouldn't take long for her to be even more disliked by the minority communities. She's the border czar. We know how well that's worked out. She literally withheld exculpatory evidence on black men to keep them as slave labor in California. That was a charge that was even leveled at her back in 2020. This is not a likable person. She's in, any bump that she would get, it's like, well, she'd appeal to the woke crowd. If by woke you mean exclusively the awful,
which is highly in terms of their influence, highly overrated. I mean, we saw that with the Acolyte.
Mm-hmm.
They were expecting all these modern people to come out and watch it, and then Disney suddenly had the realization that there were not as many wokesters out there as they had originally thought.
Oh,
whoops!
They've destroyed.
Meanwhile, BlackRock and Vanguard are like, whoops, our bad guys.
Yeah. Like, and again, that's a whole conversation that we will definitely have.
That's a whole other thing, but I do see them. Mm-hmm. I do see them, if it does wind up being her, I do see them really trying to spin it hard to appeal to that whole crowd.
Oh, they're going to have to.
Barely even exists, but
here's the thing. They may be stuck with her because of the money. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's like, if they had their druthers, the deep state would really like somebody else to step in. But I don't think that, again, I'm not an expert in this, so I won't even claim that I have any knowledge as to how it's going to work. But there's a lot of people who've said the money that was sent to Trump, or not to Trump, to Biden, the Biden-Harris campaign, it's like, well, hold on. That's the money that's sitting in the war chest, she shouldn't have access to it, because it's now the Harris whomever campaign. Those are two completely separate campaigns. Now, she did raise money. However, one of the thoughts is that the money that she raised was simply the big money donors withholding their money, saying, you get rid of Biden after the debate. They said, you get rid of Biden, or we're not going to cough up any cash to any Democrat. That was some stuff that was going on behind the scenes that people have talked about. So at this point, they'll probably find a way for her to get access to those funds. It's not like the Democrats have ever obeyed a law in their lives anyway. But the thing is,
Well, I
that's
thought their whole motivation behind that was because they wanted someone with a legitimate chance of winning. That's why they wanted to withhold. That's why they wanted Biden out of there, right? From that point of view.
Correct. And that
So,
would,
but then Kamala Harris, I don't think has.
which is why, again, that, like I said, I don't know if they're going to go with her or not. I've got no clue. What I do
But
know
then,
is,
which Democratic candidate would have a chance?
I don't, at this point, I don't think any of them have a chance. The problem is they may just be stuck with Kamala. Because again, it may be that like there's a ton of, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars that is sitting in an account that she may be she may be the only one to have access to it. I still think there's legal ways around that. So I won't say that
Actually,
need her, but
you know which Democrat I feel like might stand a chance of defeating Trump?
who?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Maybe.
I think he stands a better chance.
I don't think he'll take the pay cut.
No, I would vote for him just because he's The Rock.
Just because he's The Rock, yeah. Well, again, I don't know.
The wrestling and fan in me would have to vote for him.
You'd have to.
I don't even care if he says we should throw all babies and puppies into a furnace. If I'm president, I'm voting for him anyway. He's The Rock. I gotta.
So the fact that Trump has taken a stone cold stunner and walked away isn't impressive to you?
Well, it is impressive to me, unless if he's running against The Rock.
Right. Hold on. But however, let me remind you, The Rock has also done Shazam. Or not, he did Black Adam.
Black Adam, yeah.
Yeah.
He did do Black Adam. But then, Donald Trump did do Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2 is a priceless work of art, sir. I will not have you besmirching the good name of Home Alone 2.
Just saying. They both did compete at WrestleMania.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they were both there. Like, I'm just saying, he's got the wrestling cred, so you should love him.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Let's say it is Kamala. Do you see a scenario in which she actually wins, and then after she wins, what do you think that looks like?
So here's the thing: if she wins, it ain't legally.
It ain't gonna be legit.
It definitely wouldn't be legit. And here's the problem. That's what worries me the most, is that I don't know what would happen after that, because I don't know that anyone would believe it. This goes back to my bigger point about all of this, right? It's not about whether you like people or not. It's about legitimacy. No government is legitimate unless the people believe it's legitimate. Governments are like money. The only reason a dollar is worth more than a yen or a yuan or a franc or whatever is because everyone has confidence in it. Everyone believes in it. It's a magic trick. Governments only exist so long as the people who are serviced by that government believe that it is legitimate. As soon as the populace believes it's no longer legitimate, government falls. We've talked about this with the Beast of Gévaudan, right?
Yeah.
Between the 7 Years' War and the Beast of Gévaudan, that may have been what led to the French Revolution. Obviously, the 7-Year War being a very big deal. In fact, a lot of people have said the 7 Years' War is the most consequential military campaign in human history.
Yeah.
Because it reached, but also you have the Beast of Gévaudan happening at the time when a lot of people are kids. The government's inability to stop this monster from killing people. All of those kids grew up 20 years later to be a part of the French Revolution. That's not a coincidence. All of the people, and think about it now, the kids who grew up, in fact, there's this real big push. I think it's Gen Z or I've lost track. The younger generation they're becoming more conservative. They're becoming more pro-life because they've seen and they've experienced. They grew up, like my son has grown up never in a world that the Twin Towers has never existed in. He has seen and experienced a lot of the pain caused by liberal and leftist ideology. They've experienced it firsthand. They were
Yeah.
radicalized by it's like the meme where it's like, who radicalized you? And the guy comes up and says, you did. A lot there's as much as for every one, for every one of these weirdos that we see that the internet likes to push at you, there's a lot more kids who are saying, I don't want anything to do with this. They are more politically involved because they saw. And the thing is, they were also young enough to see how good things were under Trump, and now they can't even get a job under Biden.
Hmm.
They've my it again. COVID was a problem, but my son remembers the difference of how easy it was to get a job under Trump, and then what's happened under Biden. That is a formative event that has shaped him. There are kids who couldn't vote last time because they were 16 or 12. No, 16. Sorry, I was doing the math. They were 16, maybe even 15. Now they're old enough to vote.
Can I share something very personal with me?
No.
Okay. Here we go. And I want you to connect the dots on this, okay?
Okay.
Throughout most of my young adult life,
Mhm.
I told you in private that, Donnie Cho did all right with the ladies,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Throughout my life.
Right.
I'm not going to, I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but, I did okay, put up some decent numbers. Ever since Biden got elected, I haven't gotten laid once. Just saying.
You know what? I'll say it. I don't think it's a coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence either. That son of a bitch.
Yeah, I think it. Well, so here's the thing. It's someone's out, and again, everyone's laughing.
Yeah.
However,
No, they're not. People should be crying. I'm in pain, folks. I'm in pain.
They should weep that your horn is not being properly tooted.
So the way I have to compensate is by doing this YouTube bullshit. Damn
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Which is why I got out of it. So it's. I know this is like, it sounds crazy, like there's a connection, but there is. All things are spiritual. All things are economic, right? That's just how this is. Simple fact of the matter is, we are seeing a degradation of society. We have seen degradation of economy. They are connected. You cannot have a healthy economy and a morally degraded society. Doesn't occur. You can't have a morally you can't have a morally put together, organized society and have it be abjectly poor. They are not. There is no inverse correlation. The more organized, the more stable, the more moral an economy or a society is, the better its economics are. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to the moon, but but it will create an economy.
It can also be a chicken or egg thing, though, right? But the better the economy, the more.
Right. Well,
right.
They are. Well, here's the thing. I think the problem is they both spring out of the same place.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not chicken or the egg. They're both fruit from the same tree. There's a deeper problem. There's a deeper issue, and it is spiritual. It is societal. I have posted right here something I think that I genuinely believe the Holy Spirit gave to me, and it's why I do what I do. Because I was, again, last couple of years, I've been asking, why am I doing these things? Why am I going on these shows? Why am I writing these books? And it's actually the reason I left, because I want to make certain that I'm not just entertainment, but I'm providing things that will change people's minds. But I say that I'm fighting for the biblical worldview, not just the Christian worldview, but the biblical worldview. And I have it written here. It says, politics, culture, and philosophy are the children of worldview.
Mm-hmm.
The Nazis couldn't do what they did if they didn't have the worldview that they had. Napoleon couldn't have done what he did, and the founding fathers couldn't have done what they did if they had a different worldview. The fight and the struggle that we're seeing, that we've talked about, the deep state and all this, that is true, but the real fight is on a more profound level. It's a level of the worldview. The problem is the worldview we were founded with is not the worldview that we have been governed by today. and it's not the worldview shared by a lot of people in this country. There is a purely materialistic worldview. It is a socialistic worldview. And the problem is, those are both nihilistic worldviews. It's a worldview born out of Nimrod. It is a worldview born out of Satan. It is a worldview that says human life is not valuable. The other worldview is the worldview that we were founded with, which is why we fought to end slavery, which is why we fought to gain more human rights. It's a worldview that says humans are important. This is humans, and human flourishing is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a worldview that builds families. Families build economies. Economies build civilizations. We're used to things happening overnight. A lot of changes have taken place over thousands of years. Some, prosperity may come 2 or 3 centuries. There's a line, I don't know if he actually said it, but it was in the, oh, dang it. Paul Giamatti played him. He was one of the founding fathers. I just forgot the name of the movie. Adams. He did a HBO thing called not documentary, but like miniseries. I think it was Adams. Anyway, so he's in.
Damn, that guy played John Adams, and then he played the Rhino. That's
I know.
Nuts. Yeah.
Well, he also played the amazing Screw-On Head, so I see it as
Yeah.
I mean, he's an unsung hero from my perspective. If you've never seen by the way, I introduced Donnie to the Amazing Screw-On Head. If y'all have not seen the Amazing Screw-On Head, go watch it on YouTube. It's 30 minutes long. It's based on Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy. It's based on one of his comics. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It is the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life, but I love it so much. But there's a scene where he's talking to the French aristocracy, right, during the Revolution, during the American Revolution, trying to argue for them. And the aristocrats ask him if he, if he liked the opera or, something like that. And he says, no. He goes, I'm sorry, but I have no ear for music. I've had to learn politics and warfare so that my children will have the liberty to learn shipbuilding, so that their children will have the liberty to learn mercantilism, so that their children will have the liberty to learn to appreciate art. He was saying, I don't appreciate art because I can't. I don't have the liberty to do that because my society hasn't progressed far enough to allow for that, because we are under oppression.
Yeah.
If you can enjoy art, you live in a society that has the ability to produce it. That requires multiple generations of building up an economy that can even create it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, something we should do is actually play the co-creator of Spider-Man. I just forgot his name. Not Stan Lee. I have one of his comics hanging above my art desk. I'm forgetting his name. I'm terrible with names. It'll come probably halfway through the rest of the show. But the dude was an objectivist. The only photograph that we really have.
Steve Ditko.
Steve Ditko. Thank you. Jeez. Steve Ditko. Like, we don't even have photographs of the guy post 60s. He didn't talk. He didn't do interviews, really. He wanted his work to speak for itself. But in the 90s, he did a 10-minute essay on the importance of art, and specifically comic books, right? We should play that on this show one of these days and just break it down. It is it is one of my favorite things, because he points out the purpose of art is to be optimistic. What he's doing is he's decrying the movement of the anti-hero. Because his whole point is, the reason we do comic books, the reason we have heroes, the reason we have art is to call you to what can be, not what has been. It's to create stories that allow people to explore concepts of how good they can be. The act of creating art is an inherently optimistic creation. It is an act of pure defiance of entropy, which is why when a society is dying, it creates terrible art. This is something I believe. I believe wholeheartedly, and I've believed it for years. If you look at the art that a society creates, you can know if it's living or dying.
Hence Star Wars Acolyte.
Yes, and that again, how does this come back to you getting your knob waxed? If you live in a society that is dying, there is no optimism, there is no hope, there are fewer children, the art sucks. It's over sexualized. It is overly reliant on horror. It is overly reliant on spectacle.
Or it's under sexualized, and then these woke retards they replace all the attractive females with these butt ugly man ladies.
Right, but it's still
there's that, yeah.
Right, there's that. Yeah, but the problem is everything is still sexualized.
Yeah, I guess in the
Even
opposite
if they're ugly,
direction.
It's
they had to uglify all the women. I'm like, why would you do that? Why?
Yeah. Well, because again, there's no optimism there.
Speaking of pop culture and politics, I just got to make an observation real quick.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris looks like Chakotay from Star Trek Voyager with a wig.
Holy crap, I had not made that connection, but you're right.
Take Chakotay from Star Trek Voyager.
Yes.
Take look at a picture of him. Put a wig on him.
Yeah, you're right.
You go,
no,
Kamala
you're
Harris.
right.
Minus the face tattoo.
Minus
she looked like Chakotay.
She does. She does.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I hadn't even thought of that. By the way, he was my favorite character from Star Trek Voyager. I was never a Voyager fan because I, like everyone else, thought it was crap.
Man, it was the Doctor, yo. He was the best dude.
No. Well, okay. The Doctor is the most long, but I had a deep love of Chakotay because he was just such a cool character. But you're right, the Doctor was probably the best character.
Yeah.
Again, if you're watching this and you're a Star Trek nerd, go watch Star Trek Prodigy. They've moved it over to Netflix. It's an animated thing, but it's the best Star Trek that's come out probably during New Trek. Strange New Worlds, I think you could argue, but I think genuinely because there's more episodes, Star Trek Prodigy, excellent, and and Chakotay's in it. Janeway's in it. The Doctor's in this new season. So yeah, it's a really, really good. If you're a Star Trek fan, it's worth watching. Even if you're not a Star Trek fan, it's worth watching. But if you are a fan, you can really appreciate what they do with it. But yeah, so again, the thing is worldview. The fight that's being had right now is between this nihilistic, humanistic, atheistic, Nimrod-driven worldview, which leads to death and destruction, or it's one that believes in human flourishing. It's one that believes humans are worth living, that believes that life is good, that it can be made better, that human life has inherent value. That's the fight that's going on, and it's expressing itself in very different ways. But that's why all of these fights, whether it's pop culture or politics or whatever, all the fracturing and splintering of the Protestant and even the Catholic Church between the progressive church and the more conservative church thoughts. The reason that's happening is because it's about the worldview. Because not everyone who calls themselves a Christian is a Christian, right? We haven't, for the last 1,000 years, we haven't lived in a world where being a Christian got you executed. In the last 200 years, it's been something that was seen as a positive in the West. Definitely here in America. Now we're starting, the sides are being drawn. People who are part of progressive Christianity, they are submitting to this other worldview, which is why they endorse all of the behaviors and all of the actions that are detrimental and that destroy lives, that end bloodlines. That's why they endorse it, because it is anti-human at its cause, at its nature. You always know God's about to do something big because the first thing that Satan does is find a way for politicians to murder massive scores of humans.
Yeah.
It's the first thing they do, because that's what it is. It is a spirit of death. It's a spirit that's anti-human. So yeah. So yeah, and it's wild to think that in the last 2 weeks, it's not even been 2 weeks. They try to kill the what I hope to be the future president. We get JD Vance as as the vice president. Hulk Hogan speaks at
Oh
the
yeah,
at the Republican convention, and then the current president
just goes on live.
disappears.
He goes on live TV. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm old as dirt. I'm out."
Well, no, before that, he disappears
Yeah.
entirely, resigns from the campaign under remarkably dubious circumstances. There is literally zero proof that he is even alive. Not only is there any proof that he doesn't know what he's done, there's zero proof the dude's alive for 3 days. Then he comes up and says, "Yep, I'm gone." But in all while this is going on, he is snubbing the Netanyahu visit. He is snubbing our he's here to talk. He's here to, and he's like, yeah, we're not even going to bother. No one from the administration was there to greet him when he landed. This is a dignitary.
Mhm.
We've had actual enemies of the state, China, come to this nation with greater fanfare. That's again, I don't care if you like Netanyahu or you like Israel or not. That's irrelevant. The question is, how do we treat our friends? How do we treat our enemies? China's an enemy, whether you like it or not. And we will roll out the red carpet. Newsom will get rid of all the drug-addled, homeless. He'll take them and he'll shove them into some other city just so Xi Jinping doesn't have to see what kind of a crap hole California's turned into.
Yeah.
He won't do it for you. He won't do it for the people who actually live there. But he'll make certain that Xi Jinping gets the cleanest, tidiest city it's ever been had, and we won't even show. And our president won't even show up to talk to our friends. This is politics. How you interact with the world matters. At least that's what we've been told, right?
Yep.
So yeah, this whole time frame is nuts. And it's been a week and a half. So, yeah.
And yeah, it's getting crazy out there, folks. Just keep your heads on straight. Don't be a silly goose. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Keep your. By the way, Jason. Before we head out, I just got one question left for you, Jason McLean.
Yep.
Bigfoot, is he supernatural or is he flesh and blood?